2:47 a.m. the Persian Gulf, 38 nautical miles southwest of Bandar Abbas. 2 Iranian coastal defense radar systems just went active, and USS Carney, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer on routine freedom of navigation patrol, had 90 seconds before the first missile crossed the water. The crew didn't know that yet. Welcome to Navy Beacon, where we break down the operations that define sea power. To understand what happened on that morning, you need to understand the geometry of the Persian Gulf. It is not a wide ocean. It is not a forgiving body of water. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz, the navigable channel for deep-draft warships, is barely 21 nautical miles wide. The Iranian coastline runs almost the entire northern edge. Bandar Abbas, home to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy headquarters, sits at the choke point. And positioned along elevated terrain behind the city, Iran has maintained a network of coastal defense batteries for decades. Those batteries are armed with the Noor missile. The Noor is Iran's domestically produced anti-ship missile, a reverse-engineered, significantly improved variant of the Chinese C-802. It carries a 165-kilogram semi-armor-piercing warhead. It flies at near sea level, between 5 and 7 meters above the water, making radar detection extremely difficult until the final seconds of flight. Range: approximately 170 kilometers. Terminal velocity: high subsonic, around Mach 0.9. A direct hit from a Noor on an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer does not sink the ship, but it kills people. It destroys systems. It ends careers and starts wars. USS Carney had been in the Gulf for 11 days as part of a bilateral maritime security rotation coordinated through U.S. Fifth Fleet, headquartered in Manama, Bahrain. Her mission was standard: patrol international waters, demonstrate presence, monitor IRGC naval activity. The previous 72 hours had been tense. Intelligence assessments circulating through NAVCENT, Naval Forces Central Command, indicated elevated activity at several IRGC coastal installations along the strait. Signal intercepts flagged unusual communication patterns between 2 shore-based batteries and what appeared to be a mobile fire control unit operating further inland. The assessment was logged, forwarded up the chain, and classified as Condition WatchCon, elevated monitoring, no operational action required. In the report, the activity was tentatively categorized as a training exercise. The communication patterns had similarities to documented IRGC live fire drills conducted twice in the previous year. The timing, early morning, low maritime traffic, matched the standard Iranian exercise window. That assessment would later become the subject of an internal Fifth Fleet review. USS Carney's Combat Information Center was staffed with a reduced watch section at 2:47 a.m. 3 operators, 1 officer of the watch. Routine contact management, tracking the usual mix of commercial tankers, fishing vessels, and the occasional small IRGC patrol boat that shadowed U.S. ships as a matter of standard Iranian policy. What none of them were watching was the elevated terrain 12 nautical miles inland from Bandar Abbas, because the radar signatures from that position had been consistent with calibration sweeps for 3 consecutive nights. Not targeting, not fire control, calibration, until the moment they weren't. At 2:47 and 12 seconds a.m. local time, the AN/SPY-1D radar aboard USS Carney detected 2 fast-moving contacts emerging at very low altitude from the Iranian coastline. The system flagged them automatically. Time to impact, 92 seconds. The Combat Information Center watch officer, a lieutenant with 4 years of surface warfare experience, had one task in the next 15 seconds. Classify the contacts and initiate the response chain. The contacts were sea-skimming, accelerating, flying a direct intercept vector toward Carney's position. He called general quarters. The klaxon hit every compartment of the ship simultaneously. 281 sailors went to battle stations. The commanding officer, Captain David Mercer, was in his sea cabin, 4 steps from the bridge, when the announcement came over the 1MC. General quarters, all hands man your battle stations. This is not a drill. He was in CIC within 40 seconds. The picture was already clear. 2 inbound contacts. Flight profile consistent with anti-ship cruise missiles. Active radar seeker. The ship's electronic warfare suite had just picked up the terminal guidance radar going hot. Confirmed hostile. Time to impact. 51 seconds. The Phalanx close-in weapons system, the last resort automated gun mount designed to shred incoming missiles at close range, was already spinning up on both the bow and stern mounts. The system is autonomous. It doesn't wait for a human command to engage. It detects, tracks, and fires at its own calculation. But the AN/SPY-1D had already acquired both contacts at sufficient range for a standard missile engagement. Captain Mercer had a decision to make in the next 12 seconds. He made it in 4. Batteries free, engage with SM-2. 2 standard missile, 2 Block 3B anti-air missiles launched from the Mark 41 vertical launch system in rapid succession, each weighing approximately 1,500 pounds, each carrying a 137-pound blast fragmentation warhead, each flying at Mach 3.5 toward the incoming contacts. The first interception happened at 14.3 nautical miles from Carney. The detonation was visible from the bridge, a brief flash at sea level, low on the horizon, like a camera bulb in the dark. The second missile was trickier. The Noor's terminal phase involves an autonomous seeker. Once within a certain range, the missile stops responding to external guidance and flies its final attack profile on its own. It jinks. It maneuvers. It makes itself harder to track. The second SM-2 missed by 40 meters. The Phalanx took over. The 20mm Gatling cannon system, firing at 4,500 rounds per minute, engaged the contact at 1,800 meters. The burst lasted less than 2 seconds. 47 rounds. The missile detonated in a fireball 90 meters off Carney's port beam. The blast wave hit the ship hard enough to shatter 2 bridge windows and knock a petty officer off his feet in the port passageway. No penetrating damage, no casualties requiring evacuation. But the fight was not over, because while USS Carney had been defending herself, the situation ashore had escalated. At 2:48 a.m., 1 minute after the first missiles launched, the duty officer at Naval Forces Central Command in Bahrain received a flash message from Carney's communications suite. Automated. 3 words. Missiles fired, engaged, casualties TBD. Admiral Richard Kane was the 5th Fleet commander. He was woken up at 2:49 a.m. By 2:52 a.m., he was in the command center. The question in front of him was not whether to respond. Under existing rules of engagement, an unprovoked missile attack against a U.S. Navy warship authorized immediate proportional retaliation. The question was what, when, and how hard. USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, was operating 140 nautical miles south of the strait in the Gulf of Oman. She had been positioned there deliberately, far enough from the strait to avoid unnecessary provocation, close enough to respond. 2 FA-18E Super Hornets from Strike Fighter Squadron 136 were already on Alert 5, meaning 2 minutes to launch, engines ready, ordnance loaded. The target set had been prepared, not because anyone had predicted this specific attack, but because 5th Fleet maintained what the planning staff called standing contingency packages, pre-approved strike options against a defined list of Iranian military infrastructure, ready to execute on authorization. The Coastal Defense Battery at grid reference Kilo 79er, the site that had just fired on USS Carney, was on that list. Here's where the decision point became critical. At 2:54 a.m., Admiral Kane had this picture in front of him. Carney had been attacked, both missiles defeated. Ship damage, minor. Personnel injury, 1 sailor with a laceration from broken glass. The coastal battery was confirmed. Satellite imagery from a KH-13 reconnaissance satellite, repositioned 12 hours earlier as part of routine coverage, showed the installation clearly. 4 Noor launchers, a mobile fire control radar vehicle, support vehicles. Estimated personnel, between 18 and 24. To strike that battery, he needed presidential authorization for offensive action against sovereign Iranian territory. He picked up the phone to the National Security Council watch officer at 2:55 a.m. The authorization came through at 3:07 a.m. 12 minutes. Those 12 minutes are what every Iranian missile battery crew counts on. The assumption that American bureaucracy, the chain from ship to fleet to Pentagon to White House, creates a window. Time to relocate. Time to disperse. Time to survive. The mobile fire control radar vehicle had already moved. 2 of the 4 launcher vehicles were in the process of relocating when the FA-18S arrived. The Super Hornets launched from Eisenhower at 3:09 a.m. 2 aircraft, call signs Hammer 11 and Hammer 12, each carrying 2 AGM-88 HARM, high-speed anti-radiation missiles, and 2 GBU-31 JDAM 2,000-pound GPS-guided bombs. Flight time from Eisenhower to the target area, 14 minutes at low-altitude ingress. The HARM missiles were the first to fire. They home in on the radar emissions of air defense systems. The moment an Iranian radar operator keys his system active, the HARM has a lock. The operators knew this. One radar went silent immediately. One did not. The HARM from Hammer 11 impacted the remaining active radar vehicle at 3:22 a.m. Secondary explosion, fuel and electronics, visible on the FLIR camera feed relayed in near real time to 5th Fleet's command center. The 2 JDAMs from Hammer 11 went to the launcher positions confirmed by the most recent satellite imagery. The first bomb hit a launcher that had not yet relocated. Direct impact. Detonation of stored missile propellant. The explosion was significant enough that the blast overpressure was detected by seismic monitoring equipment at a commercial installation 14 kilometers away. Hammer 12's JDAMs targeted a vehicle cluster, the support and crew area identified in the pre-strike imagery. Both impacts confirmed. The 2 launchers that had relocated were not struck. Both aircraft egressed the target area at high speed, low altitude, heading back toward the Gulf of Oman. Total time over target, 6 minutes and 40 seconds. At 3:31 a.m., Admiral Kane sent the after-action report to the Pentagon. Strike complete. Primary target destroyed. 2 launchers displaced. No friendly casualties. BDA assessment ongoing. Now here's the part that rarely makes the briefing summary. The battery that had relocated, the 2 launchers that survived, did not simply disappear. They moved inland to a pre-prepared, concealed position. One that intelligence analysts had not flagged because the thermal signature from the site had been categorized as a civilian agricultural storage facility. Within 48 hours, Iranian state media was broadcasting images of what they described as destroyed agricultural infrastructure hit by American aggression. The imagery showed a damaged vehicle and what appeared to be a burned grain storage shed 800 meters from the actual strike location. The international response was immediate. Russia called for an emergency UN Security Council session. China issued a statement condemning escalatory U.S. military actions in the Persian Gulf. 3 European allies quietly requested a full brief from the State Department before issuing any public comment. Iran did not acknowledge the original missile attack. Their official position was that no Iranian military system had fired on any American vessel. The incident, in their framing, had not occurred. USS Carney entered Bahrain under its own power at 9:14 a.m. The shattered bridge windows had been covered with plywood. One sailor, Petty Officer 3rd Class Marcus Webb, received 4 stitches for a laceration to his forearm from broken glass. He was treated aboard ship and returned to duty. 3 members of the coastal battery crew were confirmed killed in the strike. Battle damage assessment placed total personnel casualties at between 6 and 11, with several additional injuries from the explosion of the propellant stores. The after-action review conducted by 5th Fleet over the following 2 weeks identified 3 failures that nearly changed the outcome. The first was the intelligence gap. The IRGC had been running deliberate deception operations, simulating calibration sweeps at the battery for 72 consecutive hours prior to the attack to establish a pattern that U.S. monitoring systems would normalize. The tactic worked. The shift from calibration to targeting radar took place in under 4 seconds, giving USS Carney's systems the minimum possible warning window. The second failure was in the SM-2 intercept geometry. Standard engagement doctrine called for a 2-missile salvo against each target. Due to a tracking correlation error in the fire control system, later traced to a software update installed 6 days prior, the second SM-2 was cued to the same contact as the first. Both missiles engaged the same incoming Noor. The second Iranian missile had 0 defensive fire directed at it until the Phalanx engaged at close range. 4 meters. That is the margin by which the second missile missed USS Carney's hull. The Phalanx saved the ship. The third failure was the 12-minute authorization window. 12 minutes gave the IRGC time to relocate 2 of 4 launchers. In a future engagement, analysts noted, those launchers would fire again, from positions unknown. The battery had been degraded, not destroyed. The broader strategic picture was harder to read. Iran had demonstrated something important that morning. Their coastal defense network could reach U.S. Navy ships operating in established patrol zones in international waters with credible anti-ship missiles. The attack had been survivable, barely, but survivable. What the strike had demonstrated in return, U.S. response time from incident to strike was under 30 minutes. That number entered every subsequent IRGC planning session. But here's what neither side announced publicly. According to sources familiar with the after-action proceedings, the National Security Council review identified this attack as a possible probe, not a decisive escalatory strike, but a test, a data collection event. The IRGC wanted to know three things: how fast Carney could respond, whether the U.S. would strike Iranian territory, and how long authorization would take. They got answers to all three questions. Pentagon analysts, reviewing the incident timeline, noted that the attack had been conducted with a minimum viable force package. 2 missiles, not a saturation salvo. The battery had a capacity of at least 8 ready missiles. 2 was a data point, not a maximum effort. The full operational capacity of that coastal network remained intact. And somewhere along the Iranian coast, 2 Noor launchers were now hidden in a position that U.S. intelligence had not yet located. Stay vigilant, stay informed. This is Navy Beacon, and we'll see you in the next one.